Hello anatomy students, today's video lecture is about connective tissue, and I wanted to take some time to talk to you about what connective tissue is, because throughout the year we're going to say things like, oh, this is connective tissue, or these spaces are filled in with connective tissue, or these layers of other tissues are connected to each other by connective tissue. And so since we throw that term around a lot, I thought that it would be good if we went through what exactly connective tissue is. So we have a couple of learning objectives that I just want to run through with you. Number one, list connective tissue functions, describe the three components of all connective tissues. That's definitely something that you should star in your head or write them down in your notes. List the components of connective tissue proper and differentiate between loose and dense connective tissue. That's definitely something that you ought to be able to do. Explain the structure and the function of fasciae, describe the composition of fluid connective tissues, and describe the composition of supporting connective tissues. The first part of this one is something that I would like you to be able to do, but you don't yet need to be able to explain the structural differences between cartilage and bone. Okay, let me move myself down here so that you can see everything. But there are three components that all connective tissues share. Number one, they all contain cells. Number two, they all contain protein fibers. And number three, the protein fibers and the cells are found in something that's called a ground substance. And the ground substance is going to vary from one type of connective tissue to another. So if we take a look at our flow chart here, and you're going to see like a mini version of this flow chart up in the upper corners of the slides here, just so that you can follow along. So it might be a good idea for you to pause this video for just a moment and just jot down this flow chart in your notes, so that on a given slide you can just glance up here and you can see exactly like where we're at in the original flow chart. And so here you can see that our three main types of connective tissue are connective tissue proper, fluid connective tissue, and supporting connective tissue. When we talk about connective tissue proper, we'll talk about the various kinds of loose connective tissue and the various kinds of dense connective tissue. And then combinations of loose and dense connective tissue are going to form something called fascia, which we'll talk about. Fluid connective tissue only includes the blood and the lymph, and supporting connective tissue is cartilage and bone. So we are first going to talk about connective tissue proper. So we're going to talk about loose and dense connective tissue and fascia. And so connective tissue proper is going to have a variety of cells, different types of extracellular fluid, and they're all going to have this viscous ground substance, which means that it's going to be a little bit more syrupy, thicker than water. Loose connective tissue proper includes adipose tissue or fat, while dense connective tissue is what comprises tendons and ligaments. And then, as I said, fascia is going to be a combination of loose and dense connective tissues. So, as I said, connective tissue proper is going to have a variety of cells. Now, some of these cells are permanent, meaning that they will attach through membrane adhesive proteins to the protein fibers that are also found in this viscous extracellular matrix, or they're going to be migratory. So like different cells, kind of like this one here, are free macrophage. That one is going to be a cell that is going to kind of move around. I just want to call to your attention though that this is just a model. All connective tissues don't have all of these cells. These cells are going to be specially located in certain parts of the body only. And I also want to make mention here too that it is these specialized cells that synthesize and secrete the proteins that make up the protein fiber component of our connective tissue. So let's take a look at that slide next. So as I said, connective tissue proper has fibers, and there are three main types of fibers. The first kind is collagen, and you may have heard of collagen just from watching TV or something, where people will get collagen injections into their lips and it kind of like firms up their face. Collagen is a very strong protein fiber. It's rope-like and it's straight. It's not all branched, and it's going to have a very high tensile strength, which means that if you try to stretch it from end to end, it's not going to split in the middle. Reticular fibers are actually made up of collagen fibers, but they're not long and unbranched. Instead, they're going to be woven in with each other to form a net-like structure. And the cells of different tissues will be suspended in these reticular fibers. And gosh, I kind of think about like a net, like when fishermen just kind of catch a load of fish and they hang it up from the mast of the boat in their net. And like if you could just imagine yourself like squeezing the net and moving the fish around, and yet the fish all stay in the net. That's kind of like what reticular tissue that has reticular fibers in it kind of feels like. It's like it's movable and it's liquid, and yet it all stays together like a solid. So it's kind of an enigma and kind of cool to think about like that. And then our last type of fiber is an elastic fiber. And elastic fibers have stretch and recoil, similar to a rubber band. They're thinner than collagen, and usually like in a microscope picture, in a micrograph, they appear to be kind of thin and wavy, while our collagen fibers appear to be thicker and straighter. And then the ground substance is this thick fluid that's made of minerals and different types of other molecules called glycoproteins and proteoglycans. And these molecules inside of this fluid are going to fill in the spaces between the cells and the fibers. And depending on the type of connective tissue that you're talking about, the ground substance is going to change. Now, the viscosity of the ground substance is something that's really important because it's going to kind of help the immune system a little bit by slowing down the rate at which bacteria and other antigens that enter our body can kind of travel through our tissues. If it were real thin and watery, it'd be really easy for those little buggers to kind of swim through, but it's not. It's viscous, it's thicker, and so it's going to slow them down so that our immune system cells can catch up to them and protect our body from disease. Okay, so let's talk in particular about loose connective tissue. We have 4 different kinds. I'm going to give you a brief description of embryonic connective tissue. We'll talk a little bit about adipose tissue, reticular tissue, and areolar tissue. It's not areolar. It is areolar tissue. I'm sorry, I stumbled over that one, didn't I? Areolar. So that's where we're at. All right, so just as a reminder, you can definitely look up here in the upper corner so that you can see where we are at. And the dark blue squares are what you should have copied down on a piece of paper so that you could kind of see what it is that we're looking at. So our first kind of loose connective tissue that we're going to talk about is embryonic connective tissue. And this connective tissue is called mesenchyme. Mesenchyme forms when an embryo is just starting to develop inside of the uterus. It contains star-shaped cells called mesenchymal cells, and these are going to turn into mesenchymal stem cells. The matrix is made up of very fine protein filaments. And I mention mesenchyme because it's going to give rise to all of the other connective tissues that you have in the chart up at the top corner. And the other thing that I wanted to mention is that once you reach adulthood, you don't have mesenchyme anymore, but you do have mesenchymal stem cells. And those mesenchymal stem cells can differentiate to form other cells that are found in our connective tissues. So let's talk about areolar tissue. Areolar tissue is loose connective tissue, and it's got an open framework. The space is taken up mostly by this viscous ground substance. So it's got very few protein fibers, but it does have a lot of ground substance. It contains a lot of elastic fibers, so it's able to stretch and recoil, and it also contains a number of cells that are migratory. They're going to pass through this tissue. They contain a lot of cells called fibrocytes, and these fibrocytes are the ones that are synthesizing and secreting the elastic fibers that are found inside of this tissue. And if you look at the picture here, it gives you some indication as to where you would find areolar tissue. Within the dermis of the skin, which is something that we're going to cover next week. The epithelial lining of the digestive, respiratory, and urinary tracts between the muscles. So you're going to find this tissue in a lot of different places. And then as you can see here in this sketch of a micrograph, it's not only elastic fibers that it has, but it's also got collagen fibers too. And again, those protein fibers are synthesized and secreted by the fibrocytes that are found there. Areolar tissue has an extensive blood supply, which means that it is going to allow for nutrients and oxygen to diffuse out of the blood vessels that are found here. And because it's mostly filled with this viscous ground substance, these molecules are going to be able to easily diffuse through this tissue to get to other tissues that lie on top of it or around it that may be avascular, that don't support their own blood vessels. Another type of loose connective tissue that might be more familiar to you is called adipose tissue or fat tissue. And the locations of fat, oh gosh, it's all over the body, right? It's under the skin, in the buttocks, the breasts, padding around the eyes, and even the kidneys. So just look here, and this will tell you where you're going to find adipose tissue. Adipose tissue is made up mostly of fat cells, and most of the space inside of a fat cell is taken up by a droplet of lipids all together. And this drop is so large that it kind of squeezes the nucleus so that it mashes up against the cell membrane. So if you look at this picture of these fat cells, these little dots here, here, all of those little dots, those are the nuclei of the fat cells. Now, I don't want you to think that just because it has fat in it that they're not metabolically active, because they actually are. So, they also have other organelles that are going to allow them to synthesize ATP. Now, adipocytes arise from mesenchymal stem cells. So I just wanted to kind of give you a little bit of information about this. Like when somebody loses weight, it doesn't mean that their fat cells are gone. It's just that the lipids that are inside of those fat cells have now been utilized to create energy, and that fat droplet, or the droplet of lipids, I guess I should say, inside of these cells has now diminished or decreased in size, and so the cell decreases in size. So by losing weight, you're not killing off fat cells. The fat cells are still there. It's just that they have decreased in size. So they're always there to, if the person falls off the wagon and, they go off their diet and they start eating unhealthy foods and things like that, then, our body is going to store that excess energy back into the fat cells. And so the fat cells are going to stay there. Another thing that I wanted to bring up is that fat cells can be regenerated from mesenchymal stem cells. So even somebody who gets a procedure called liposuction, where they go and they get the fat underneath their skin kind of sucked out of their body, if they don't take care of themselves and they continue to eat bad foods, or they stop exercising, or they revert to an unhealthy lifestyle, their mesenchymal stem cells can say, hey, we need a storage place for all of this extra energy, and they can generate more fat cells.